Next, on this episode of The Nice Guys on Business.
We realize that to be real, you have to have techniques for whatever might come up. And it's not always going to be, a day in the park, right? Sometimes you're going to have those really difficult situations that come up. And what we want to do too is sensitize leaders. Like, how do you realize where, I've got something in front of me that I need to phone a friend, or I need to get my HR department involved, or this might need legal attention, So it's really, how do they see those signs? How do they pay attention to it? And then again, what's their role with regard to that? Like, what actions can they potentially take?
Oh, no, wait a minute. You think I'm funny, like a clown. Do the nice guys amuse you? Go from where you are now to where you could be. Get expert tips to grow your business, to be more productive and more efficient, whether you're trying to build influence, grow your community, or make it rain. Best-selling author of Nice Guys Finish First, Doug Sandler, can lead the way. The Nice Guys on Business is produced by Turnkey Podcast Productions. Now, here's your host, Doug Sandler.
Nice guy community, welcome back to the show. Conflict in business, it's unavoidable. But what if I told you you could actually be helping your company and doing well by your company by having some conflict? So today we're joined by Kim Faircloth and Dawn Bedlivy. See that I didn't screw it up that time on the introduction. Authors of Conflict Sparks Change, a game-changing guide that turns workplace disputes into opportunities for growth. Whether you're wrangling team drama, negotiating with partners, or just trying to keep the peace, they've got the strategies to help you handle it. Just like a pro. Now, even if you're not a pro, or even if you don't have a big team, this is good, not just for your company, but in the relationships that you have too. Let's dive in and learn how to make conflict work for you instead of against you. Ladies, welcome to the Nice Guys on Business podcast.
Yeah, gosh, thanks for having us. Yeah.
So those behind the scenes will not know this. I totally flubbed up the first couple of times that I started this, and it's okay because Kim and Dawn, they are new at this podcast guesting thing, and we've only done this 1,600 times on Nice Guys, so they know that in the audience, they know that I'm going to screw up anyway all the way through this. So I appreciate that. So I want to start here because I think this is so important. I always look at conflict to be, gosh, this is just another headache, another thorn in my side, whether it's with my team or with my clients or whatever. But it's actually a really good learning opportunity for you. So who wants to field the first question? Why is conflict in the workplace good?
I'll start.
Okay.
So here's the thing, the title was chosen on purpose. It sparks change. Really think about it, that anytime we have a diversity of thought or ideas, or we hire very diverse skill sets, we should expect and welcome some debate about those ideas.
Yep.
And when eventually, as it will happen, you hope, this idea and this idea aren't aligned quite yet, something new is trying to emerge. So when you support that moment, right, and really dig in to see what's possible now, or what's trying to be born out of those two ideas not landing well yet together, it works out good. It's when we stay task-based. It's when we don't. Right? We've got a deadline coming. Mm-hmm. We have maybe mom's sick, at home, or life happens, right? We're all a mess. It's real a mess. It's no judgment there. That's when we have to learn how to really have a mindset shift and get it back on track over here in the task space.
I think about it. Thanks, Kim. I appreciate the answer. And Dawn, I'm going to direct this one at you because I think about like the different personality types, whether you're doing something that's a disc-related assessment, or you even have like the birds where you have an eagle versus an owl versus a dove versus a parrot. There's so many different opportunities in there. I tend to find I'm like the parrot. I'm the guy that's big picture thinker. I'm colorful. I try to, I'm a messenger, so I like to talk a lot. And when I run into like an engineer style or an owl, let's say, I'm running into somebody that wants to know all the details. They want to know where the end game is heading so that we can start with the end in mind. And oftentimes I'm like, I don't care about the pain. Just show me the baby. It's like, so how talk to me about, I know it could be good and I know, but how do you get through it? Because you have the day-to-day practice that you're dealing with. So Dawn, how do you deal with that?
So I think there's a couple of things that we've learned in our many years with dealing with conflict, not only within organizations where we helped our organizations kind of and our leaders get through it, but even on our own teams, right? How do we deal with that? And when you were using that imagery, Doug, I'm thinking to myself, I think a lot of it turns on the leader and really being able to be that conductor of an orchestra, if I want to use that.
Yeah.
So, if we think of sometimes we try to resist labeling people too much because, one day you might be an owl, maybe you're something else another day, right?
Right.
It just kind of depends. And I think it's really incumbent on the leader to pay attention, and really try to navigate what's happening right in front of me right now. And the reason we said conflict sparks change is because oftentimes something's not going right or something new needs to happen here and the leader needs to bring it out. So for example, if somebody's like, let's just get to the point and your team is kind of getting fed up, the leader really needs to pay attention to that and say, hey, we've got a diversity of ideas here. Maybe we need to take a break. Maybe we need to shift the conversation somehow. And that's really the change where change happens, right? Is really being able to pay attention to what's happening on the team. How do you help people bring out their ideas and hear each other's ideas and not let the interpersonal get in the way?
Is this a version of, and not to try to put it in the same bucket or classification as any other category, but is this the same as like conflict management? I mean, it seems like that is a term that's been floating out there for forever. So how is this? Tell me about this type of conflict is good. Conflict sparks change. Tell me how that fits into the whole game of conflict management.
If you've ever taken a conflict management class, it sounds like it's something that, that you can put in a nice orderly box, maybe have a strategy for it and you manage it. Managing it and leading it, I think are two different things, right? The fact is that what you want to do is harness it for good, right? I think it's a better word for that. And so my doctorate's in leadership, organizational leadership, right? My dissertation was on conflict. And it's interesting because I didn't set out to have conflict for my dissertation, taking a leadership doctorate. But it quickly came to that because it's the one area that I find most leaders have difficulty with.
Yeah, they avoid. I would see them avoiding it. It's like, no,
they
I don't
avoid
want
it, or they yield.
Right.
Or this is the thing that's happening now. I think that very often we're teaching a lot about emotional intelligence and empathy, and to the point that I wonder whether we're paralyzing our leaders, right? To when should I take action? And not only when, but how. Well, you should take action the minute you see a business problem resulting as a result of the conflict. That's when you should take action, like right then. Not watching it grow, but right then.
It seems like you called it harnessing the power of the conflict.
Yeah,
so
really
if you're harnessing conflict, you are actually you're inviting it oftentimes, and not in a negative way. I would say, how great would it be as a team leader, whether remotely or in an office environment, to have a group of 10 people sitting around the table and as the leader say, okay, here's what we're going to do. We're going to harness conflict. I'm going to bring up a subject that we need to talk about today. And in that subject, there's going to be differing points of view. I want to discuss all of those points of view here because I think it's important for us to really understand what's going on so that we can view this from everybody's perspective. Is that what you mean by when you say harnessing the power of conflict?
It is. I think that's kind of what I was getting at with this conductor metaphor, right?
Yeah,
so
that's
if you're in
it,
I mean, so if you have an orchestra, you have to hear everybody, right? Unless, of course, it's not called for in the piece, right? Because there are times when a leader doesn't need to hear everybody. And I always say some behaviors we don't want people to bring their whole selves to work with, right? And we have to address those, right? But generally, you want people to bring forth their ideas and thoughts, because otherwise, if you're a leader and you're sitting in a room and you do just that and it's silent, you have got a huge problem.
Doesn't conflict breed innovation?
It sure does. It sure does. And not only that, what do we do when we used to call nonconformists the devil's advocates, and isn't that an awful term? We have to really watch our language, right? Because those nonconformists are often the ones that spark an idea that is different and might not be the idea you land on, but it needs to be respected and heard, right? We advocate for, when we do those, what you're talking about, those sort of brainstorming sessions, right?
Yep.
We really advocate that leaders encourage a slower and a more methodical process for that, meaning that when I offer a new idea, before we roll past it, the next person in line to talk really needs to acknowledge that first idea. Just something about it. Listen to it, right? Meaning that they say, what I liked about that idea, and here's what I want to add to that, or something different to think about. And I think when I one time was given the hashtag slow my roll.
Okay.
The next hashtag, though, that was given to me was on like Donkey Kong. So you got both sort of right here that a leader has to manage, right? So we want to hear everything. We want to go through the change model in that possibility thinking stage very carefully, and then we do need to execute and then rethink again. Yeah, it's very cool to lead.
Isn't and again, let me play the other side of the coin for just a second, because the reality of conflicts in the workplace is, yes, you could be mature about it and have all of these leaders sit around a table and discuss it and work it out, and then you have all of the front line that are doing the work. How do you prevent animosity from wrecking the culture or the environment that you have established? Because you have all of these different. It's not like we're in a bee colony where everybody has the same. Yes, we are all rowing in the same direction, but not everybody has the same way to get there. How do you deal with the everyday smaller conflicts that happen within the bigger conflict of just, I have a different perspective on this? Because that's got to be hard for those frontline team.
I was going to say, Doug, I think that's the reason we really wanted to write the book,
Mm-hmm.
because oftentimes, a lot of classes or courses will say, well, this is your type, and it doesn't help you actually do anything. So, there's nothing practical about knowing that I'm conflict avoidant, right?
Right.
And I'm like, okay, I'm an avoider. I know this now. So we really wrote the book to give people the what do you do? Like and the first part of it is noticing it, right? And then making a commitment that you as the leader really have to do something about it, because the more it festers, the worse it gets. So the reason we wrote the book was to give people tools so that when they did perhaps engage, maybe take somebody aside and say, hey, I noticed that was kind of getting heated in there. Let's have a conversation about what might be going on. They feel confident that they can have that kind of conversation. And we found a lot of it was just confidence that our leaders needed. How do we help them feel confident? And then it's helpful to have words to use, because oftentimes you don't know what's going to come out of that other person's mouth. And then you may be like, I wasn't expecting that, right? And we wanted to give people words. Here's words you can use, phrases you can use, practical steps you can take. And how do you make sure that you're getting the whole story so that you know how to better engage in the conflict? So that's really why we wrote this, as a practical how-to manual, and to encourage people to know that they can use these tools and they can intervene early and have a positive outcome. Because a lot of times, I think even before myself, I'm envisioning these conversations like, what if it goes south? What if they file a complaint against me? What if they do this or that, right? And with these tools, we know that they're proven. We've used them ourselves with our own teams and with our own customers and clients. And it really enables them to have very successful outcomes.
I don't want to leave this too far behind because you mentioned it a couple of times, and I want to make sure that we share some good practical information with those in our community that are listening to this, that are thinking about, hey, it sounds like this is right up my alley. I want to talk about conflict, and I want to talk about how it breeds the change that we really want, and I want to get a copy of the book. But you mentioned some phrases. Could you maybe share a couple of phrases, some conflict, like kind of recognition phrases, or whatever it is that you want to bring up here?
Yeah. So I think, first of all, it's your mindset. right?
Yeah.
So let's start there. Your
Yeah, I
mindset
agree. I
has to
agree.
be, right? You have to have the right mindset. I also think that, you know, we have to be careful. The very first thing I tell leaders is to not promise right away confidentiality. That is a great ticket. And it really can begin the trust process when someone comes to you and they say, "Hey, boss, can I tell you something in confidence?" Right? This. Well, your answer really should be, thank you. Thank you for coming to me, right? To share whatever you're going to share. And I can't, you're coming to me for some assistance. So I can't promise that we're going to be confidential, but what I will promise is I'm going to tell you what our next steps are together.
That's good.
Right?
Yeah.
And I really think that starts, because once I start going down a path that I'm already not being honest with you right from the get-go, but when
Well,
I'm honest with you right away, I have a few words. The first few words I'm going to say to somebody, that is a game changer for that.
I
Secondly,
love that.
yeah,
Sorry, I just want to
yeah,
just touch upon that. I love the thank you for bringing this to me.
yeah,
Thank you for trusting me enough to bring this to me.
it's
I love that.
awesome.
And I also like giving a little pushback too. I want to bring you this
Yeah.
and have this be confidential. You as a leader can say, I can't promise that because we want to get to the bottom of this.
We're going to work on this.
Yeah, we got to
That's
work
why
on
you're
this.
bringing it to me.
Just the two of us
Yeah.
are going to work on it. That doesn't really solve
What
the
a
problem here.
mindset change that is. Like,
Right.
isn't it? Yeah.
What were we
And
gonna
you
say,
don't know
Don?
what's going to come out, Doug, right? I
don't.
mean, so
Right.
like you have no idea what this person is about to tell you. And it
Right.
may be something that you especially if you're an officer of the company, you have an obligation to act on it. So
Right.
it's a really important, and that's what I meant by having the phrase ready,
Got
because sometimes we tend to freeze when things like this happen. We're like, oh, what do I say? And that's what I mean about having the words ready to just be able to say them.
All right, so Dawn, it's Kim. Sorry, I interrupted you. You were going to go into your second point. Did I scare it out of your head? Do you remember what it was?
It's almost exactly what Don said. I do think that okay, so I've said the first thing.
Yeah.
Now we have a model that we have promoted. It's called HERE.
Mm-hmm.
And in the model, it gives you step-by-step instructions about a few opening questions, because we just really believe that that's that first like 10 minutes, right? Where you're trying to come up with where should I go next? What should I say next? That has our leaders frozen. It's almost like when I call the computer person to fix my computer.
Right.
I don't want them to talk about computer analytics. I actually want them to tell me what to do to get started.
It is amazing. My girlfriend and I oftentimes will do something called the couples dialogue. And if you look at the couples dialogue, it appears to be a script. So you're sitting with your partner having a deep emotional, sometimes conversation, and you're following a script. Now, the reality of it is the script is the basis of the entire conversation. But what's so great about it is you're safe in the script. And as long as you're not approaching the conversation like, hey, look, I'm going to just wing this. You're not winging it. You're actually, here's a script. Let me give you your lines, and I'm going to give you my lines too, and we're going to share this. It sounds like if you have a formula in this HERE, is that what it's called? HERE?
HERE, HERE.
Okay.
Here.
If you have HERE as your acronym, and you even write it down, and you could probably even hand it to the person on your team and say, we're going to follow this.
We can. You really can.
It makes it so much easier.
It is. And the other thing I think leaders get, so I'm going to give you the third thing. So one, is your mindset. Two is a formula, like something to get you started.
Yes.
And then the third thing that we added to the book was just a hilarious moment. Being ombudsman, we get intake a lot, right?
Yes.
And, leaders come with like a yellow legal pad, just with notes of all, as they were trying to work through hearing these stories. So we created something called Sorted. SORTED.
Okay.
And each of the boxes help guide you through how to capture in bullets meaningful data as you're taking this in, right? And we feel like if leaders, could just sort of have a note sheet, because then also when you have that formula, you notice, they never really told me how they thought about it. there's nothing in that box. They never, so the model, I think if you learn the
Right.
models up front, they will help those conversations then become much more organic afterward, right? Start scripted, you're frozen a little, maybe you're even conflict avoidant yourself. Then that eases you into it. You start hearing and you start being more organic with the conversation.
Dawn, I'm curious how, as a leader of an organization, I keep thinking, I have so many things that I'm doing in the course of my day. Conflict management, conflict resolution, dealing with conflict, harnessing the power of conflict, running through a formula, all of that. It just seems like, wow, okay, let me go over to my conflict folder and pull this thing out, and let me go over to my payroll folder and pull this out. How does someone manage this as a part of their? Do you have to kind of put it in its own separate bucket or compartment, don't you, Dawn?
I think you have to make it part of what you do every day to be really successful, Doug. I think that's what it is. And what we found is, for the most part, if you're building the right kind of teams, if you have the right folks in the room, or you've got folks that are in the right positions, they can do their jobs. For the most part, this becomes a little less troublesome part of your day, right? Because what you're dealing
Right.
with then are perhaps low-level blips, or let me just ask, that meeting was a little contentious. Let me just check in here and there and make sure everybody's okay. I think it's a constant just monitoring what's going on and paying attention, the same way we would about how our products are doing in business or what the market is doing, right? It's really just, what's the temperature of this team? What am I sensing around me? And then knowing that depending on what the temperature level is, I have a tool I can use to intervene in that space, right? And that's when we talk about conflict sparks change, it's really encouraging the team to have dialogue on a consistent basis, right? And engaging with the team and showing that I, as the leader, I'm interested in what everybody else has to say. Otherwise, they're going to sit in front of me and wait for me to speak, right? So that's not what we're talking about. That's really the opposite of what
Right.
we're talking about. Then you don't need our tools because you're just dictating what everyone does, right? And we know that's not the way to create change or innovation.
Kim, did you want to add to that?
No, I think that she's absolutely spot on, as Dawn usually is. Right, she is. I just would say that also, having we promote mediation skills for managers.
Right.
So often we hear about mediation and it's this legalistic, we're going to create these settlement documents and stuff, but really it's a facilitated dialogue between parties who are at odds for whatever reason, right? So at some point, once you get past these blips and things that you're engaging with day to day, it may be that you need to level up your skills and bring in parties with disparate views because a business problem has emerged from that, and getting some mediation types of skills, facilitating difficult conversation types of skills. It behooves every leader to do that. I wonder sometimes it's always everywhere I go, everywhere I consult, everywhere I look. It's in at least the top 3, if not the number 1 leadership development.
I'm
need.
sure it.
Yeah.
I mean, I think
And we
about
don't
it
do
again as a part of a team that's growing. I think about the very early stages when it was just my partner Strickland and I. We were best buddies. We didn't have any conflict. You start bringing people and different personalities into the equation, and all of a sudden the water starts to get a little warmer, and then it gets hot, and then it starts to boil. And at some point you have to realize, can I put the cap on this conversation so that, and how do I manage this conversation? Is there ever a too late to bring in this type of formula into your organization? Like, is there a good time to start before a conflict begins, and then a better time to start once conflicts begin? What's the best time to bring in this type of programming?
So we would say right from the beginning is if we we just lived through COVID and we all get vaccinations. So how can I, to the extent I can, almost vaccinate my environment, right? So it's really setting expectations for the team up front and just being real. We're going to have conflict. We'd like to be able to, here's what I'd like as your leader to have that kind of dialogue, to have that kind of constructive discussion. Otherwise, we're not going to get anywhere. At the end of the day, though, the leader has to make the decision. And we don't have it in the book, but one of the tools we use a lot with teams is, building almost an alliance up front with the team. How are we going to behave? And what are we going to do when things start going south? How are we going to behave as a team? And then it's really the leader's job to hold that together. And the tools we've provided in the book, the other reason we have not only just here and sorted, but mediation techniques, team mediation techniques, is because we realize that no matter how much you're paying attention, sometimes things go from 0 to 60 and you're like, whoa, how did we get here? Right. And it could be overnight, it seems, to the leader. Because something was brewing and no one brought it to your attention, because that's how human beings are. They don't necessarily share that, right? They're like, I can deal with it. And then something blows up. So we realize that to be real, you have to have techniques for whatever might come up. And it's not always going to be, a day in the park, right? Sometimes you're going to have those really difficult situations that come up. And what we want to do too is sensitize leaders. Like, how do you realize where, I've got something in front of me that I need to phone a friend, or I need to get my HR department involved, or this might need legal attention, So it's really, how do they see those signs? How do they pay attention to it? And then again, what's their role with regard to that? Like, what actions can they potentially take?
The book is called Conflict Sparks Change. Dawn and Kim are the co-authors of this book. How did you guys, if I could take a right turn for a quick second, how did you guys get together originally? I know that you're in the same arena, but coming at it from different perspectives, maybe. How did you guys find each other?
Hardcore practitioners. Like, we are not. So we have. Dawn has a law degree. I have a PhD. So 1 foot in theory, 1 foot in law. We've got it, right? But we came together as hardcore practitioners when we needed help. We found each other and we built from that. Hardcore practitioners. You would be probably amazed at our stories.
All right, Dawn, add to that, add to Kim's story, add your perspective.
Kim and I actually met, I think, we worked at the same organization for many years, but probably met even before that, and worked some really large scale projects in different capacities, and then came together around building an integrated conflict management system for our organization. So it was really an entrepreneurial project we had within the organization. And I think a shared passion for how we could. Oftentimes we would be on the back end of these situations that had gone from 0 to 60. You're like, how did we get here? And share a passion for figuring out, how can we keep things from getting to that? I call it the Chernobyl stage. How do we get it from not the meltdown anymore, right? How do we start catching things way earlier? And how do we build processes all along the way that help bring that to an organization?
Bringing this subject matter out on its own is a challenge. Co-writing a book together about the challenge is very about the topic is very challenging on its own as well. What was the process that you guys went through to write the book? Did you say, hey, you take chapters 1 through 5 and I'll take chapters 6 through 10, or how did you write this together?
We actually co-wrote everything together. And boy, talk about, no matter how old you are, working at the edge of your boundaries. It's awesome. So it was new. We co-wrote everything together. We just, she would maybe start something, I'd edit, and I was starting on something, we edit, but we were on the same chapter. Actually, the truth is, because we'd worked so long together, we already had a mindset about what those things were going to look like. It was just a matter of then sort of leveling up our writing skills, which, how to take all of this and put it down on paper was an interesting journey. But the book's great. We love it.
And Dawn, what was your biggest challenge as you were writing the book? And don't say Kim.
No, it wasn't really. It was, I think it was how to organize it in a way that people could really digest it. I think that was really a challenge, because I think, like Kim said, we had been living and practicing these materials for so long, and they were really born out of years and years of experience and mistakes, right, that we made even as practitioners or as leaders, personally. And it was really, how do you put all that together in a way that would make sense to someone else who wanted to pick up the book? And then I think it was, what perspective should we write this for? That was also a struggle, because we felt like there's our leaders out there who are struggling with conflict. There's our HR professionals out there who are trying to help the organization. So I think for us, that was a big challenge.
Right. What would be, if you could advance the clock down 5 or 10 years from now, what impact did you hope the book had made over those 5 or 10 years? And Kim, I'll start with you, and then Dawn, I'll give you the final word.
Doug, what a wonderful question. So the book is written as a desk reference, right? The impact would be that in the moment I'm getting ready to engage in something, I kind of have the models in my brain. I'm going to pull this out. I'm going to do a little planning whenever it's possible to engage with some consistency, right? So how do I trust a leader, or really anybody else, right? 4 things. One is that they are competent. I trust my husband of 45 years. He's not giving me a root canal because he's not competent to do that. So trust has a component of competent.
Got it.
Right? So leaders got to level up, right? Caring, right? You want to be caring. You want to perceive this person cares enough to meet you where you are and not leave you there alone. Right. So caring.
I'm walking through these in my brain as a leader. I'm walking through these in my brain.
Are you? You're writing them down? Yeah. So this is like
caring?
some of my best tips, right? They really are. So it's competence and caring, and then you want to be you want to have some confidence. And I think that the competence gives you that, but really some confidence. You don't want to go into somebody that looks like they're scared to death. So if you work on your own conflict resolution skills, that would be great to kind of work on your own behaviors, right? What did you learn as a child on how to deal with conflict? Work on your own behaviors. Right. And then the final one's consistency. And that the models help you, right? I come to you and you don't say this to me, and then the next thing I hear, because you will talk about it with everybody else as you're saying that to that one. So some consistency. Those 4 things, if you really level down on those, right? Competence, confidence, consistency, and caring. 4 C's, you'll go a long way, leaders, to change the game with regard to conflict.
All right. So Dawn, we're advancing the clock 5 or 10 years. This impact was made because of your book. What were you hoping that would be?
So what was coming to me is, I think, the impact certain books have had on me. And one that I always use is Good to Great, just that image of the right people being on the bus and the right
Jim
seats
Collins.
on the bus.
Jim
Yes.
Collins.
And
wonderful book.
I don't remember his research. I don't remember all that. But when I need that analogy, it comes to my mind. And that's what I would love for our book. When that leader is in the heat of the moment, that this comes to their mind and it becomes a guiding light for them that they can put into action right away and change the situation to something great.
Awesome.
That's really my hope.
And that is so realistic, and as only you two could probably have laid it out, it makes total sense how that will happen. I love the idea. I mean, you really did create this imagery for me when you said we want to use this. I think, Kim, you said this. I want to use this as this could be used as a desk reference. Now it just gives me an opportunity to have it close by on the bookshelf, wherever it's going to be. Sometimes it's not in the moment. I mean, the conflict can arise pretty quickly oftentimes.
Sure,
sometimes you see it coming, but sometimes you have an open slam door behind you.
Yes,
you can't get out the book fast enough to be able to help resolve it. So those 4 C's that you just laid out, especially the competence and the consistency. I mean, if you have a different message that you're sharing with different people in your organization because of how you think they're going to react, I don't think that that's a good way to lead. I think that's a way to be like mollycoddling the people in your organization, which is never good to be able to just lay down and let them run. What's the animals run in the zoo?
Yeah, well, they are sometimes.
You need the lead. You need the lead from the leadership chair. So
yeah, you really do.
Great visual is having it as a desk reference. For those in our community that want to get more information or get a copy of the book, conflictsparkschange.com is the website. Just head over there. Anything I'm forgetting to ask you, or anything that you want to talk about that I didn't share with our community? I know we're a few minutes over, but I want to give you an opportunity to spill those last nuggets of wisdom.
Yeah. You know what, leaders, you're doing a great job. How about that? How about if I just tell you, it is our experience, and we get to work through, you come in like, help me. Partner with your HR department. Know what their messages, their competence is. Partner with them. Get in there early. Have that confidence. And I swear, you're doing a great job in a really tough world.
It is very hard, especially in a world where everybody wants to cancel you if you do something wrong.
Guys, they're doing just amazing job. And right now, if you took all those leadership classes, you signed up for the job, and you were excited, this should be your moment right now. This is your time. Use the skills, and you can do it. Have that confidence.
Thanks, Kim. And Dawn,
and I
final
guess
word.
I would say, Doug, just normalize conflict within an organization, right? It's something to be actually embraced and used effectively by leaders, and not to be feared. And just to know that once you educate yourself and kind of upskill yourself, you can handle these situations, and you don't have to handle them by yourself.
Excellent. Great final word. And what did you call it? Upskilling? I love that. That is great. That is good. If you're in our community and you are looking to be upskilled, conflictsparkschange.com might be a good place for you to start. Check out the book. Yeah. Kim and Dawn, thanks for being here, and thanks for sharing your wisdom.
How fun. Thank you.
Nice Guy community. Never underestimate the power of nice. Again, special thanks to Kim and Dawn. All of their information, including access to the book, right there in the show notes. You know where those are. Just go ahead and check the link in the show notes. I'll wait. Go ahead. I'll wait. Okay, did you check the link in the show notes? Okay. Steve O'Brien, go ahead and take us out of here.
For the Nice Guys on Business, I'm Steve O'Brien. Seriously, it'll only hurt for a minute. Or two. 10 tops.